Live. So welcome everybody to the podcast, Answering the Call of Your Purpose. I'm Luanne Mareen, and basically for those who are new watching this, basically this is about bringing on inspirational people who have heard the call of their purpose and then answered it and doing amazing work in the world, supporting others. And so today I have the beautiful Joyce van der Lely. Is it Lely or Lay? I thought it was.
No, awesome. Very good. Yes.
So welcome, Joyce. And I love your website. So the name is The Artemist, right?
Yes.
So we've got The Artemist there. And so we're just going to jump straight in, Joyce. And I want to. First of all, I want to say you're living in a beautiful part of the world, my homeland, New Zealand, at the moment, yes. But you're not from there originally.
No.
But what are you doing right now? What are you doing in the world right now?
So I am a multi-passionate person, and I love to include many things in my life, in what I do and the things, because I am a very curious person. So I'm an artist. That's main thing. First and foremost, I'm an artist. I create things. I create my life. I create tangible things. I'm a visual artist. I like to play. I like to have fun. So what I do now is I constantly try to find ways where I can incorporate as many of those aspects into my life and into my work, because I believe life and work is all connected. Mm-hmm. So for me, at least, my life is my work is my life. It goes like that. So I'm an artist. I teach and help women. I work mostly with women to find their freedom in their expression, and that has been, if I look back at what I've done in my life previously and the challenges that I've encountered and the things that threw me off my path and what brought me back and stuff, the one core line, the core of the rope that I'm holding, so to speak, has always been freedom, personal freedom to be able to choose what you do, when you do it, where and how. And freedom of expression, really freedom of expression in as many ways as you can think of. Mm-hmm. That is always the core driving force behind anything that I'm looking for, but also the things that I do and that I help others with. Yeah.
I love that. And when you say freedom, I just light up, because that's one of my core values, freedom. And it's interesting in these times is, we were just chatting offline before, of lockdowns and things like that. That's not where I want to go with this, but that is kind of like, where's our freedom, and that's really, but your expression, like I'm even looking in your background there, the artist, right, the alchemist, and it's just beautiful beauty, and like you said, it is tangible. But what led you to where you are today? Like, where's, I always like to say, where's the story? We always have our breakdown before our breakthrough, right? So what led you to being this amazing artist, helping women, claim back their freedom?
Yeah. So, yes, as you said, I am not originally from New Zealand. I actually was born and grew up on the other side of the world, completely the other side of the globe, in Holland, in the Netherlands. And I've always been curious. I've always been adventurous. And so I loved traveling, and seeing so many other places in the world really made me feel like I wanted to. I felt called to leave. It's sometimes you don't always exactly understand why, because I had a lovely family and there were no reasons I needed to flee or escape. It was just this feeling like I really wanted to experience or be in another place than where I was growing up, or had been growing up. And so I moved away and went to New Zealand.
Kind of right over the opposite side, right?
Yeah, how far away can you go, right? But there were different reasons. I tried to make sense of it all, and there are explanations why I chose New Zealand and things like that, which make sense or not. It doesn't really matter. I ended up being on the other side of the globe with no family support, just my partner and I, and we we build up our new life in the new country. And we even, I even had 2 kids, and then the earthquakes happened.
Oh, wow.
So because I lived in Christchurch on the
You're in
South Island,
Christchurch.
and
Oh,
so yeah, so the earthquake experience probably was the biggest aha moment. There were little signs before. There were little signs before that so I escaped.
yeah.
I escaped Europe. I know, I meant to say I escaped the rat race of Western Europe, basically. Having traveled and seen other places, and really other places, like I've been to Africa, South America, so many other places in the world where life is completely different, where the pace of life is different, the focus of life is different, and so that was one of the reasons why every time I came back to Europe, it was like, oh, this madhouse, and so in New Zealand, it was quieter because just it's a bigger country with less people. But somehow I built a new life for myself running in the same little hamster wheel, which is silly, and there were little signs on the way, but I never really stopped to think and feel them. I sort of ignored them and pushed through. And so the earthquakes were a huge pattern interrupt, like an immediate boom. I mean, that's literally, stop, look, think. What are you doing? So I now can look at that experience as having been a good one for me, because it made me stop. It made me re-evaluate my life, the things I was doing, how I was doing things, why I was doing things, and all that. It changed everything, really.
It's so interesting, because I mean, I am from New Zealand, but I've actually spent, now I've calculated, half my life, I'm now in Melbourne, Australia. So it's like there are similarities in culture, but it is like when you say New Zealand's quieter, it is a slower pace, but we can actually just go into the same pattern, right? If we're not conscious of it.
Yeah.
And so I do kind of miss that. But so then, where are you now? You're not in Christchurch anymore?
No. So initially, I stayed in the south. I stayed in Christchurch and tried to make sense of it all and see how I could rebuild. I felt loyal to the place because that was my home away from home. Yes. That was where the kids were born. And I like to feel connected to a place. So I thought, I didn't really feel like going away. I mean, I had a lot of acquaintances and friends that actually fled the city, that were scared and uprooted their family and just left. I had people, I know people that went to other places in New Zealand. I know people, they just hopped in the car and started driving, other people that decided to go back to the country that they originally were from. Another family that now lives in Canada. There were so many different reactions that people have. Initially, we decided to stay and try to make it work. But the red tape and the earthquake commissions and all that, and we had lost too much to sustain us any longer. We needed to make a decision. And so I knew some people here in the Bay of Plenty, and
wow, beautiful.
Yeah. and after another load of aftershocks that were pretty bad, we decided to visit them, because she kept inviting me and say, hey, if you need a break, come and stay with us. So in the end, we did go and visit with them. And it's like, why would we even go back? I had no immediate family here anyway, so there wasn't anything that kept us there. So after we had visited them here, we went back and basically packed up whatever we had left over and just thought, we'll shut the door, leave whatever has happened behind, and focus on the future. Cut our losses, because we were done with fighting with the insurance companies and earthquake commissions. It was, I mean, I have friends, they have just started on her house last year. Yeah.
And that was so many years
like 10 years ago. Yeah.
10 years, I had a friend who, she's from New Zealand, then she moved here, and then her and her partner went back, and they settled in Christchurch, and then the earthquakes happened. After a few years they were there, and she just left everything and came back here, and now she's up the Sunshine Coast. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it basically, like, you just left everything. It was like, no, start again. Because,
well, you know, you can keep staying there and keep, you know, it just doesn't do a lot of good for your emotional health and your physical health even. You know, there are a lot of people that have had to start taking medication to keep their mental state calm, you know. And I thought there are other ways, and I've always had my art. So I've always had my art to escape into, you know. And
well, that will take us into our next thing, right? So then the question is, what do you believe is your purpose? Now I hear art, like, what do you think your purpose is?
I believe that my purpose is to help. So now, having experienced these earthquakes and how I came through it and how others noticed what I was doing, because that's the thing. I never saw what my art was, my expression, what that did for me. I always just took it for granted, really, you know. But when the earthquakes had happened, in my little neighborhood, there's so many places that were red stickered, which meant that, you know, I was close to where all the boulders fell off the hills. And, you know, so a lot of houses were evacuated and stuff. But there were families and mothers that I had come to know, and they said, Joyce, what are you doing? You stay so calm, and you don't even have any family support, immediate support here. You guys are just alone. You've lost so much. How do you stay calm? I'm like beyond myself, and I'm panicky, and, you know. And I said, I don't know. I do this. And then I showed them what I did. You know, I journaled it out. Basically, I just expressed my sorrows, my worries, my fears, my whatever emotions came through me. I just let them come through and expressed them through my art journaling. And then they became safe containers for the things that others were carrying around, basically, you know, if you visualize it in their backpack. Yeah. So I could release that. I could release that through my creative expression, and then move forward. So, and that probably is also the reason why it was easier for us as a family to decide to move and cut our losses and just go. Some people, it comes more natural, and others need to learn. I think you can learn it, because I have helped other women do it, you know. Because you can get to these kind of, I mean, I experienced earthquakes, others experience other reasons why their life feels like it's all fallen to pieces, you know. But the process is similar. And also that's why when the pandemic started, it felt like a little bit of a deja vu. You know, it felt it's different because the whole world is experiencing it, but it felt similar in so many ways. And so, you know, once you find that calm inner core within yourself, and you know that you can get through things because you have tools that you can use, and that you don't rely on others, you don't have to rely on others, you can pull from those forces, from those superpowers, you know. It's your own personal medicine. So what I do with the women that I work with is find their personal toolkit, you know. We work through different things in different ways, and I give them the experience of how I do things, and other things that other ways that I know you can creatively express yourself. But they might not all work for me. You know, I have like 10, and I personally may only use one, but there are 9 others that I know how to use, and that I can help others taste, experience, and see how, you know, I feel like a weaver. Yeah. We weave together this magic carpet that works for you. You know?
And would you say that's your purpose, is to weave this magic through?
I think my purpose, I think, is to inspire and help others create their personal toolkit or personal magic carpet, you know, their way to come through life and create that feeling of freedom and in self-expression and feeling of worthiness, you know, because so it all boils down to having a calm inner core. From there, you feel more confident to express yourself freely, you know. And because of that, you feel like you are choosing how your life and your work looks like.
I love that. I love that.
And so whatever storm is going on around me or around, around you, you know that you have that power within you that you can pull from.
Yeah. I totally believe that, Joyce. It's like we have this power. And I think from what I'm hearing is, that beautiful expression, because we hold, a lot of people will hold all that emotion in, right? And it does no good for us to hold it in. We've got to bring it out. And you create, you teach us these beautiful tools. Well, let's look at it, let's feel it, let's bring it, and let's clear it, right?
Yeah.
So how did you answer the call of your purpose? Like you said, you had all these taps, but did you go, okay, I'm gonna, yep, that's
yeah.
what.
So really, I had nothing to lose, right? After the earthquakes, when we had lost so much, it was like, okay. So with the remainder of what we had, we packed all our belongings into a container and shipped it on to the North Island. And basically, we didn't know what we're gonna do, and we had calculated out how much we could, how much money we had basically to sing it out. And I had to, at that time, the kids were primary school aged, so I really wanted to settle them in first in school and in the new environment. So I rented a little house and put the kids onto school, and then it was like, what are we going to do? I don't know. We'll have to get used to the new place and see what's available, what's there, what's not there. I'm going to look for a job. I don't know. I hadn't had always been really self-employed or had a business of my own, and so it was a bit strange, and I just started helping out at school, really. I just started helping out the teacher at school in my daughter's class, and started talking, and she said, what did you used to do in Christchurch? And I said, well, I was teaching art and did art workshops and creative. And she said, why aren't you doing that here? And I said, well, the house I'm renting is not really suitable for that. And, all these, she said, hey, you want to start just in my classroom here after school? So she helped me, because honestly, I didn't have a lot of finances left over. That was the thing. It was really starting from scratch again, a dirty, oily rag.
But what I'm hearing is like it's the courage that you actually had to move. Finances weren't great, but you still had that courage, and that comes from hearing and answering the call.
Well, I just decided after the earthquakes that I was not going to do anything. I wasn't going to accept anything that wouldn't make me happy. You suddenly realize that life is, or our life experience in this body, it can be limited, and it's not infinite. So then what do you do? I was not prepared to go and take a job just because of a couple of dollars. I wanted to do something that made me happy doing what I was doing. So I was looking for something. So in the meantime, I was just helping out at school because that was fun. I didn't have to think much. I was just doing something fun with the kids, and this woman was really, really helpful and nice, and we started talking, and she became a friend, and so she offered her classroom for me to start, and I started doing little classes, and then I got more and more people inquiring, and then I slowly started building up my life and my work again, and I found a studio in town, and it was just believing that it had to be possible for me to find a way to make money by doing only the things that I loved, and I was not gonna
So you see, that's so important. That is so important. And I was having a conversation with somebody, it was just a friend, and they were quite upset about their job, and I'm like, well, and then they said, well, I'm making 250,000 a year. I can't give that up. I'm like, well, what if you could do what you really loved and you only made 50,000? What would that look like? And it's not even to limit it that because we, to say we're doing the work and we get paid less, we actually get paid more. But it's not just money, it's the joy, which is in your name, of course. And you, from what I hear, you had the breadcrumbs, you answered the call. So then why do you think it's so important for people to do their purpose work?
Because it actually makes you healthier.
Yeah.
When you do things that you love. So in the beginning, this has gone completely to the extreme that I am the sole supporter of my family, right? My kids are now teenagers, or my son is almost 20. But anyway, and they're highly creative. So they have creative, my daughter plays piano and violin and trombone, and they love art, and they're not the cheapest after school activities. They could have chosen netball or something like that, but no. Anyway,
even that's expensive when they get into those high. My daughters play netball in their uniforms. Oh my goodness! But yeah, of course.
But but it's not really about that. It's like I started teaching. I took on my little studio, the lease on my little studio. We had a conversation at home because, of course, again, we have no family here, and we always believe that one of us, it would be better for the kids to have one of us home when they come home from school. I've never been a believer in shipping out my kids to after school care and things
just
like
became
that.
A thing, right? That actually became a thing, right? Everybody should go.
Oh, everybody needs to do what they need to do. It's fine. I don't judge. I don't judge at all. But for me, it's always been like one of us needs to be home for the kids to provide a safe place for them. Anyway, so when I got inquiries to work more and more and more, I thought, oh my gosh, now how are we going to do this? So we had a discussion together with my partner and I. It's like, what are we going to do? And he said, well, I could stay home, and he loves cooking and things. He said, I could stay home and you could go out and do the work if, we can give it a try, and so we did that. And there we are.
The importance. So when I go, the importance of it. Well, what else are you going to do, right? You're going to maybe be in a job that you don't really like, to pay for a house that you don't, not even in, because it's the mortgage is so high. The kids are in daycare, and no judgment, but it's like we've kind of been conditioned to what you were saying at the beginning. This rat race. It's like keep going. It's like, actually, no.
I worked myself to burnout before, so I know what that feels like, so now I was gonna do this, and so in the beginning I would have people come to my studio and they thought it was my hobby, it's a bit patriarchal still in New Zealand.
Oh, just a little bit.
So it was like, oh, well, they hear my accent is not from New Zealand, so they start to ask the questions, and then the story comes, and then it's like, oh, and what does your husband do? And I go, well, he's a house husband. And then you see these faces, and it's almost like they expect you to say yes because he's disabled or something, or he's depressed, or I don't know.
Choice, right? No, it's actually his choice.
Yeah. So it's big. And then I go, no, we've reversed roles. And I felt really in the beginning a bit like, oh, I have to explain this. This is wrong. They don't accept this, that I am the one bringing home the bacon, or and that is actually at the same time when I started to also do more online work. I started struggling with this, the feminine and the masculine, and because I felt like, oh, I have to be careful here that I don't work myself to a burnout again, because I'm leaning into this masculine energy so heavily, I need to, and luckily I still always had that art, the creative expression, because that is more of feminine energy. So, but running a business, there's a lot of more masculine, and there's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with masculine
No,
energy,
not at
but you
all.
need to have it, you need to have it in harmony, you know, you need to, and you sometimes swing a little bit more to the feminine and sometimes swing a little bit more to the masculine, but there needs to be this dance, this even sort of give and take. And so, you know, I felt myself explaining myself away, like, oh yeah,
Mm.
and that just felt so wrong. So in the beginning, when I started doing my online work, I was very focused on this masculine and feminine energy part. You know, yeah, it intrigued me, and it was really, really important for me to find explanations and understanding within myself. And that is, you know, the more I do the work, because it's ever evolving, and I know you know this too, you know, you're never done.
No,
Um,
no.
so you know, the more I started delving into what makes me tick, what makes other people tick, how does that fit into society, how do you present yourself, how do you come across to people,
Mm.
and it's not, you know, because there's this good girl people pleasing part as well, you know, so all these fears, all these monsters just pop up. You know, it's almost like a battle.
Yeah. No, well, it is. Yeah, it is. Like, I hear you, and I think two of the biggest spiritual teachers in our life is having a business and being in relationship, right?
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like you get to weave all of the masculine, feminine, and I know, like, definitely I know when I'm in the masculine, and I do use it for my business, but then it's like, oh, the creative part balances it out like you do. So that kind of leads me to, and you kind of touched on some of the tools, but knowing your purpose is one thing, right? We can know it, it's written down, it's like, but then embodying it and expressing it is another. And I feel each of us has different tools in that. So what you know, could you give an example of one of the tools that you use to express your purpose? Or even, and I know it's art is one of them, but you know, kind of, we have, to me it's like, well, do you do shadow work, or do you look at this, you know, what is the thing that you do, or one of them? And there's lots, but just give us
yeah.
one.
So definitely there's shadow work, and shadow work for me, I always explain it back to artists, creatives who express themselves. And this can be visual artists, painters. They use black and white, darks, highlights and shadows, darks and lights, to create dynamics in their works of art. You know, without darkness, there is no work of art, because you cannot get that dark and light play. It's the same for musicians. You know, they have their high tones and their low tones and their combination chords and whatever. You know, it's a play between a high and low, light and dark. It's everywhere. The people that are writers, the wordsmiths, they play with words. You know, it's even a cook in a kitchen. You know, they throw in some spicy stuff in their soup and they put in some cream. You know, it's a play. It's always a play. And that's why I loved last year when I got this download of, I was looking for a new name, right? I had been operated my online work under the fierce female force. And this was especially when I was, you know, when I was working with that masculine and feminine energy part a lot. I felt like there was a force, there was female, that was good, but it was powerful. So but then I felt like there's something that is starting to disconnect. I felt it was too strong, because I started to dive into my softer goddess, you know, the goddess, the senses. And I had this whole conversation at one point with a fellow artist. I said, how is this? I'm a visual artist. You know, somebody that will meet me will say I'm a visual artist, because I paint and I sketch and I art journal and all that. But music is also so important for me. I said, because sometimes I need a certain type of music to accompany my creating. Sometimes when I am creating, I want stillness. You know, there's this demand for audio as well. And also I love playing with words. And he said, well, you're just sensual. And I thought, oh, that sounds weird. You know, And I looked at him and I went like, what do you mean? I'm sensual, like, ooh. And he goes, no, but you are connected to all the senses, so try to see what comes up when you study them a little bit more. So I love the alchemy of the different, because I always feel like we're so layered, we have vision, we have hearing, we have our smell and our touch. I'm tactile as well. I love things that are tactile. There's so many explanations or examples that I can give, so yes, it's the senses, the shadow work with the senses, even,
Yeah.
there it's, and again, I come back to this weaving of this twining of a rope. I think we all have that, and that is, I'm an adventurer. I guide people on their path to their adventure, finding their core threads that are their core rope. It's like casting a rope to an anchor,
Love.
and you have a rope, and a rope is all twined up of little bits of thread. So what are the threads that make up your magic cord,
Yeah.
it's and then as I'm talking about that and visualizing that and seeing that, I can smell an atmosphere around. I go into a different world, I can go into this different world where I can see
Oh,
this
sorry,
rope.
Joyce. Somebody's doing their. My goodness. Like,
Somebody's doing the whippersnipping out there.
Oh,
Karen, the weaving. You were talking about the weaving. The weaving. Yeah.
so when I talk about that, I can just imagine being in a different surroundings. I can smell the air. I can see where I am twining this rope. It's like magic. It's an escape. But it's also an understanding and a realization.
Mm.
And so these are the stories that I take. I think we are storytellers of our own life.
Yeah.
And it's always combining things. And as I'm talking about this and twining a rope, I think about that there's this umbilical cord. And there's an umbilical cord too, it connects us to Mother Earth. And so yes, I include now in my work, and that's why I was so excited about the Artemist, because this is pure alchemy, right? I include the elements because of nature, the Mother Earth, the air, the water, all that. And I include the senses. And with that, we find the ways of expression that work for you. That's how I work with my clients. We find what works for you. Is maybe sometimes you're a bit more inclined to visual expression. Some are more inclined to writing or hearing or all kinds. So we can combine that, and at some point in your cycle, even you might lean into more of Mother Earth and more of the water element, or more of, it depends on your life cycle, your menstrual cycle. There are so many things that are, especially for women, that are working in the background or underneath, and I think we just need to slow down.
Yeah, I love it. So if I could summarize, the knowing and the tools, it's, you're weaving your shadow work, but then the senses, and then, just going, being silent sometimes,
It is, yeah, being silent, reflecting within, and embracing what you see and what you encounter, and understanding, because your shadow is as much part of you as the lighter side.
Absolutely.
And without your shadow, you wouldn't be the light side that you may like to use, So you need to understand those shadows.
And stop that resistance, right? We always think, oh, it's bad to think like that. And it's like, no, we're all of it. We're all of it. So I'd love you to share a story of working with one of your favorite clients, and the transformation that happened and why.
So this client came to me, and she was like, so like, those little birds that shake a little bit, like they're very, so very, very much drawn away, like not confident at all, and doubting every single thing, everything from the way she looked, the way she expressed herself. Nothing was good enough. The funny thing was that she had taken a photo of there are boulders down south here, the Moraki boulders. She had taken a photo, and they're very, very beautiful. And I saw that photo, and I said, "Oh, you should draw those." And she completely shut. And so she came to this session, and I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "Well, because I saw this, she had posted that photo on her social media, and I had put a little comment under as a positive, like, hey, you should, wow, you should paint or sketch these." And so she came to the session, and I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, I said, "Go on, you can tell me anything, it's okay, whatever you say." She said, "Well, you posted that thing underneath my photo." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I love that photo." She said, "Yeah, but," and then it came out that it triggered this memory of a teacher in school who had told her that she was so bad at drawing that she should just stick with drawing stones.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
Oh,
wow.
no.
You didn't know this had a good, you didn't.
No.
Wow.
And I said, "Oh."
Wow. Okay.
And I said, "Okay." And she said, "And we have just been working because the session before I had been, explaining how beneficial expressing yourself visually can be. And I gave her some tasks to do, to try it out, whether that was for her." And she said, "Oh, I cannot draw a line." And I said, "No, you don't have to draw a line. You just go and, it's about the process." So I had given her all that pep talk, and so I had expected her to come with some things that she had done and say how it felt for her, so we can, because we do if I work with my clients and we do visual work, we usually start to analyze it afterwards, if we can see whether there's the medicine in there. Anyway, so that's what I had expected her to bring, and instead she came with this drab face. And so this story came out, and I said, "Look," I said, "just let that go." That I loved the photo, and that's why I encouraged you. I said, "But now we have to work through this." Because this is then one of those triggers that comes up that you don't know. They come out of nothing, sometimes. Exactly. And that's the same thing. And that's something that I really think is important. They still come up. Also for me, because even though I've done all these years of work now, and even though I've studied all the different, or not all, but a lot of different aspects, and I start to understand myself more and more and more, it still happens. It still happens that something can suddenly trigger you, and boom, you have to face this monster again. And
did she go on and paint the picture?
Eventually she did. Eventually she did, but it took work to get through this thing that obviously she had been carrying from her school, from the time that she went to school, all the way into adulthood. And and that was one of the things why she never tried to do any visual expression. And then we started talking about why it was okay for her to take photos, because she did love photography. And I said, "So how?" And then it was like, "Well, that's a machine. Somebody built a machine that can do this." And so her taking in a pencil or a pen or whatever to draw an image, she couldn't rely on somebody's expertise, which was the camera, which is, there are all kinds, there are layers in everybody, it's amazing. But so we did a whole session of just releasing that block, and facing this fear and understanding where it came from and why it wasn't important enough to carry that with her from now on. And now she loves expressing herself visually. It's not the only thing that she does, but you know, she loves that part of working through things through visual expression. So, you know, yeah.
This is one of my favorite parts, you know, is like hearing that transformation. And you know, my sister, she was the same, and these teachers, right, back in the day. So she's an amazing speaker, and you know, in school, I think it was probably at 15, she got up and did her speech, and he pretty much laughed at her and said, "No, that's you're never going to be a great speaker." And so she held that for years and years, and I'm like, God, how dare you? How very dare you? But you're like the messenger with her. It's like, you didn't even know it. You just wrote the thing, and then pop up it came, and then it's up, and then you work with it. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of more questions here. Where can we, first of all, like, I know that you've got a kind of a free gift for us and an opt-in. So where can we find you, and where can we go to, you know, come and see your work and join your email list, and you know, you let your inspiration keep coming at us?
Well, it's easy. You just go to theartemist.com and you go from there. That's the easiest one to just start. Once you find me,
the links down below too.
Yeah. So it's just the Artemist. It's art and alchemist combined. So Artemist. There's also Artemis, the goddess, you know, so there's a little bit of a play with words that I also love. And so yeah, theartemist.com, that's where my art, alchemy and creative guidance work, you can find that all there, and you go from there. You know, you just sign up for something, you sign up for the newsletter or for the freebie, and then and then we'll stay in touch.
and be in that community. So I love your newsletter.
Yeah, my community is all, you know, it's all for magical misfits.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, I love that. I love that. So then, as we're ending the interview, it's been such a joy. I love to, you know, for you to share something about yourself that possibly nobody knows. It could be a funny story, or it could be just, I don't know, but can you share with us? And maybe your partner knows or your kids know, but you know, the world in general don't know this about you. What would it be?
Gosh, I'm quite easy, you know, I share things about myself. I don't really mind. So there are quite a few little secrets that I've shared over the years about me. Yeah, I don't know.
Tell us, because we may know, we don't know possibly. So I mean, one of mine in the past is that I used to own a fish and chip shop, right? As a kid, I used to, it was called Dean and Lou's Fish and Chip Shop in New Zealand. And yeah, I'm glad that we sold that after 9 months. But anyway, what about you?
What about me? What is a nice story about me? Gosh,
Nice. It can be funny, can be, you know, I don't know.
Well, it's just, you know, I think I'll tell you something that is it is important, because if it makes you think like it's certain things about you are not so important. So as I was growing up, I've got quite a prominent nose. My best friend had a very small upward pointing nose. And at one point we had come into a fight. And we started, you know, as girls, you can be really nasty. And I don't know who even started, whether it was her or me, but both of us said something about our noses. Like she said, "Oh, you with your big," I don't know, there's a Dutch word for a big nose. Wow. And I said something to her like, "Oh, you with your little piggy nose," or whatever. So the thing was that afterwards, and we lived very close, we lived like 2 doors away from each other. And so afterwards, I used to sit at the table with my hand like that. So if somebody was sitting on that side, I would have my hand like this. If somebody was sitting on that side of me, I would have my hand like this. Because I never wanted anybody to see my profile. Because I thought, and every time I looked in the mirror, I saw a bigger and bigger nose. And it turned out she had the same thing happen to her with her little nose. But of course, so my mom knew about my problem and her mom knew about her problem, but we never told, and we were a bit cold for a while. Anyway, so after, I don't know even how long, but it just got really bad. So my parents at one point said, what was the whole thing? What was the big deal? And I said to them that she had called on my nose. And so my parents and her parents knew each other. So apparently they went and talked about it. And it turned out that we both had done the same thing to each other. We are still good friends. I mean, she still lives in Europe and I live here, and we're still like, if we pick up the phone, it's like nothing has, nothing has happened, and no distance doesn't matter and all that, So it's just this weird thing. Don't let one little thing throw you off. This was in my teenage years, and it threw me off for a while. It threw her off for a while. I could have carried this for so long, but it's a silly little thing that is not important because it's not your soul. Our souls are good. They have good intentions. So if something comes up, always talk it out, but also talk it out with yourself in the mirror, Yeah. Have open conversations with yourself in the mirror so that you accept yourself just the way you are.
I love that, Joyce. And the nose knows, right?
The nose is a nose. And the nose is a nose is a nose. Yeah, whatever.
Well, thank you so much. I love that story. And, I'm sure with everybody who's watching this, there's always somebody that said something to us and we take it not in the way that it's intended or the way that it's intended, and then we have to deal with that. But that was, I love the outcome of that. And you're still great friends after all this time. Thank you so much, Joyce, for coming on, answering the call of your purpose. So for those who are watching, go and check her out at theartemis.com, and you can share, like this video, and comment below. And it's just been a true joy, Joyce.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you so very much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been a blessing. You say a blessing, eh?
A blessing. Like blessings, but better. So thank you.
Cool.